Hi, I'm Mara Webster with In Creative Company, and today I'm so excited to be talking about the fantastic series Gen V with cast members London Thor and Derek Liu. And I wanted to start by asking you both about how you kind of approach this role, because obviously you're coming into a pre-existing world off the back of The Boys. And I was interested in if it was useful to look at the series of The Boys to kind of figure out some of the scope of how you were going to approach this character, or if it was more helpful just to really focus on the scripts of Gen V and kind of put the boys to the back of your minds.
Yeah, I was a huge fan of The Boys before I booked the show. So that was already in my mind. And the universe, and Kripke creates such a unique universe, Supernatural and The Boys, completely different worlds, but it's still the same dark and gritty vibe. So going into it, knowing that that was the overall feeling of the show, and then reading the scripts and having them kind of contrast with some fun and it's a little bit more of a youthful script. It helped educate us on a little bit more of the direction we were going with this character.
Yeah, absolutely. I think having same with London being such a huge fan of the boys, it definitely helped with like the tone and knowing the overall tone of like the world you're playing in. But Jordan was definitely a like one of a kind character. I had not seen that in the boys universe yet. So we definitely had to create our own sort of rules for that character. But I think as far as like the boys and Vought universe, the tone was very readily available for us.
Yeah.
And I love how innate it sounds like the experience and the process of sharing a character in this way was for the two of you. And I've heard you talk about having kind of like an initial sit down and really kind of going through the idea of the character, but that a lot of it just kind of came very naturally. But I was interested when you first sat down together, what were some of the details that you really wanted to discuss, or the questions that you wanted to ask each other about how you wanted to play this character together?
Yeah, I think in London has said it in interviews before was making sure to really like lock down Jordan's like core beliefs and values, and having that really like solidified was allowed us to be able to then play with the different like textures and emotions of the male and the female form.
And was that
Yeah.
the same for you?
Yeah. We really we've said it many times before. We leapt into this character in terms of how, Derek and I both have aspects of Jordan in our personalities as well as aspects of each other's personalities. Uh,
Yeah.
it's kind of a perfect yin and yang of being so similar but so different. We That was already in place, which was great. I mean, the amount of people that have asked us if we've met before filming and if we'd known each other before, it's no, we met. He wasn't even the first person I met on set. But we just got lucky in that sense. And so having that already in place, and then also, the initial sit down, that was our only big conversation that we had. And we really just kind of, we didn't take it too seriously. We didn't go through like, oh, a method of like, this is what needs to be done and this is what needs to be in place. We just talked about what was our childhood? What was our, it was kind of the dream of like the fun dream that you get when you get to be an actor, of like creating this character's entire backstory.
Mm-hmm.
Favorite foods.
Yep. Favorite movies. I was just going over that again today as we're like prepping to get ready for the second season. I was like, I the movies that we picked, now that I have like a better understanding, I'm really like, what I want to dig into deeper. Like, what does this say about Jordan that these are their favorite movies, you know?
And what was so great about it too was that it wasn't pulled out of thin air. I mean,
Right.
it's for Jordan, but a lot of the stuff that we decided upon was from us. It was, Derek was loves chicken tenders. So that was one of the things we were like, yeah, definitely chicken tenders. And then some of my favorite movies were in there, and some of his. The only thing that was created was, I think, the a symptom of hanging out with Maddie Phillips on set is astrology becomes
Yeah.
in nature. So we
Yeah,
created our own astrological chart, which was the only thing that was pulled out of thin air.
for sure.
I was also really interested in just the scope of sharing scenes. And there's obviously moments where Jordan switches between which gender they're presenting as very intentionally. Like if we look at the scene with their parents, where, it's kind of an antagonistic thing to switch female in that moment to kind of prove a point. And obviously in stunt work to do with which powers are being utilized in any given moment. But with other scenes where you guys are kind of switching back and forth, was it always denoted in the script specifically when you guys were going to switch, or was some of that just playing full scenes with one another and then it happening more in post-production?
Yeah, I think when we got the scripts, it was pretty like set in stone when Jordan was going to switch. So we had the idea or like the heads up that they're going to be presenting female and then switch at this moment into male. But the writers and Michelle did such a great job at taking care with when those switches were going to happen. So yeah, they were pretty set in stone. It wasn't, I would have loved to be on set playing around in the scene and doing it. And then all of a sudden we're like, oh wait, this is when we should switch. That would be cool. Maybe season 2. That's a great idea.
Yeah, no, they did a great job with it, where even the most conversational, casual things, the switches were very much put there for a reason. It's with, they weren't going like, oh, well, Derek's had 5 minutes of screen time, let's get there. It was very, okay, so we have to, this is the reason, there's a motive behind them switching, because it is it means a lot for this character.
For sure.
I love that. When it comes to making those switches in the middle of filming scenes, I was just interested in the logistical element, because I've heard you both talk a little bit about, if there's a makeout scene and like one of you starts to lean in and then all of a sudden you have to like literally hold the pose and kind of come in and match the body language. And so I was just interested in how the two of you adapted into figuring that out with one another.
I don't know. It was just every day. It was just a new experience. Every day was a new. I had this like pose that I would do, this like little Jordan pose, and London hated it. She was just like, "Why?" Because they'd be like, "All right, head down, more, put your chin down more," and she's like, "Why did you stand like this? Why did you decide to stand like this?" I'm like, I don't know. I couldn't help it. I was feeling it in the moment. But that was always like I don't even know if we really figured out a system. I think it was just kind of just let go and like release control of that. Like, don't try to just, however it lands, we're just going to have to do it,
Yeah, that was one thing we definitely didn't have any control over, because we also didn't know where they were going to really stop in editing. So it was just full faith in the director of, it was like a bad headshot session where it was just, okay, chin down, eyes up, move your shoulder, right shoulder, left shoulder, no, drop your head, constant. It was tricky. The kissing one, especially the first kiss with Marie was an experience.
Yeah, to say the least.
Or Jazz. Jazz, I love dearly, and have known for so long, that I think there was a big sister, not big sister, but a sister quality of like, when Derek swapped in for me for the kiss, I was standing in the corner, literally standing in a corner, watching them this close to each other's face. And it's fun for me. It was fun.
One of the things I love about Jordan as a character as well is that they're incredibly guarded and protective of themselves. But there's a real softness underneath. And once they allow people in, they're so incredibly loyal and fiercely protective of other people as well. And we really see that through the relationship that develops with Marie. So for both of you, kind of how did you set about finding where are those shifting points of where there's more of the softness and the vulnerability that we get to see in the character the deeper we go into the season?
I'll take this one, London. Thank you. I think the writing just like really lent itself to that, like to finding those moments. We were able to, it was pretty obvious in the writing. So the writers did a great job at allowing us to find those moments. And then they were like there, they were like pitched there for us. And then it was our job to like scratch the surface and just go deeper and really like find those nuanced moments. Maybe to pinpoint one, I would have to say probably for me at least would be when I'm having that outside the diner with Marie, and I'm like, she's in our minds, she's reading our minds, and then Marie calms me down and she's like, oh, and by the way, you don't have to switch into a dude to get your point across. And you kind of see me like struggle to want to like be like, I don't have to listen to you. And then I'm like, fine, right, you're right, like it's still that guardedness, but we really love her and we care about her and we value her opinion and she sees us. So it was like that tenderness of like you said, being guarded, but then allowing that love and that loyalty and that vulnerability to shine through. I think that for me was one like very pivotal moment.
Yeah, we got lucky to we really, I mean, we didn't know the scripts before they came out. We would get a couple at a time maybe in the beginning, but then we watched the evolution of Jordan come about too. The first couple episodes, they're super guarded and super they're the straight man, they're very dark and closed off. And then as filming went on, and I think as the team kind of got to know Derek and I as well, they added some comedy and they added some parts to Jordan that really were like, oh, okay, this is a fun, vulnerable character. They don't, it's not, they did such a brilliant job in writing where it's not a classic, like, oh, dark and guarded to emotional. It's dark and guarded to, humor, to teasing, to playfulness, and then into openness, which is real. There's not, it's very real.
Yeah.
And because of what you were saying there about obviously you didn't have all the scripts up front and you were getting them piece by piece, did you have the details of kind of the scenes up front with their parents to kind of really understand a lot of where some of that guardedness and self-protectiveness comes from as part of their backstory? Or was that information that you got later on in the series?
No, that episode in particular was, I think, the first one we got after we got the first two. So the first two came together, and then because they were both same director, and then we got the third, which had the parents and a whole bunch of other stuff that was very revealing. So no, we didn't. That was when we sat down to have that conversation.
Right.
Was when we kind of got a little bit more backstory, a little bit more attitude, a little more humor, and we were like, okay, let's sit down and figure out what this character is.
Did it kind of match with what you'd both envisioned or imagined part of that backstory and their relationship with their parents had been, or was it something that was different to what you'd ideated up to that point?
To be honest, I feel like it was different. I feel like we had an idea, like there was something that Jordan felt uncomfortable in their skin about something, but with only, getting there right before filming, having maybe one meeting and getting like, these are your superpowers, this is their personality, this is how they act, and they have some sort of I really didn't feel like we got too much. So when we saw that, that's why we sat down and had that meeting, because it was just like, oh, now it makes sense. Now, okay, I get it. Yeah.
That was what was funny is it's, you have this idea of like, okay, I'll get this character, I'll book this job, I'll sit down, I'll do all the work that goes along with creating a backstory, because of course I'll know everything that's going to happen in the series.
Right.
And then you don't know anything.
Yeah.
You get there the day before they start filming. Like,
Yeah.
You haven't read a whole script.
Right.
And then you kind of and then there's another actor that I have to meet that I'm like, what if he sucks? What if Derek's a jerk? Which
Hey.
I didn't say you were.
Hey, that was your preconceived notion of me?
Yes. No, I didn't know anything. The only person I knew anything about on the show was Jazz, because I know her, and Asa. So I had no idea. I had never spoken to Derek. I had never met Derek. So that was I didn't really actually worry about it. Now that I think about it, I think I probably knew in my heart that it would be fine. But you don't, you want these things, you have this idea of how it's going to work, the process. And then we had one conversation in a hallway about how our ethnicity and our backgrounds, bleed into the character and how that affected Jordan. And then that was it.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's so fascinating. And I also think that one of the things that's really beautifully captured in Jordan and all of the other characters with the show is this idea that if you take away all of the elements in terms of story to do with superpowers, it really is just these characters who are really going through this coming of age and learning about themselves and self-discovery, which everybody's doing at that time in life anyway. So that's why it feels so grounded and connected and relatable. And so how did you both set about making sure that it was always really kind of tying back to just that very intimate journey of self and coming of age element, stripped away from all of the larger aspects of the show?
Yeah, I think again, the writing in the world did such a great job of like making the superheroes or making the superpowers secondary. This was very much always the idea was these are real kids dealing with real issues and struggling to come of age. Oh, by the way, they have superpowers. So it was always like in our minds that we're making a very humanized version or a very humanized show. It just happens to have a lot of blood and guts and gore and superpowers. So yeah, just going in with that like mentality and kind of knowing that definitely helped with the process of knowing these are grounded characters.
Yeah, it's also one of those things of, this is a big responsibility of what all of these characters, Marie and Emma and Jordan, are going through, represents a huge portion of our society in a superhero kind of way, but the real root of it is grounded in huge reality for everyone that's growing up and already grown up. But that was exciting for us to take on a responsibility, and it gave us kind of it put us in a position to really tap into how that connects to us too, and reflect back on ourselves. And it was a big responsibility, and I think we took really good care of it.
And one of the things at play for Jordan as well is obviously their relationship with Professor Brink, who, they see disappear in front of their own eyes at the beginning of the show. And then there's that mourning and sense of loss, but then the loss of the idea of what that relationship was and what they had believed it to be, where it was this real mentorship, and they're finding out it was something completely different and feeling a little bit disillusioned. And how did you kind of view the way that they discover the truth to really shift things inside of Jordan as a person? Because it feels like it kind of actually in the end gives them a lot more self-confidence and standing in their own 2 feet and finding their own path forward.
Yeah. What I thought was so interesting about that arc with Brink was Jordan, in my mind at least, and I think in Derek's as well, was at the core one of the only true superheroes in the show, wanting to not be a celebrity, wanting to be a hero. And Brink is kind of it's their weakness. He's represents their evil, which is this, this weakness to need to be loved and to need this father's approval. So that was fun for us. I mean, we got to really, that was one of the only, not one of the only, but a big part of the character that made complete sense to me of, okay, this is what this is. And it's a complex and interesting relationship. And it was so exciting to play.
And there's also that aspect that comes into play as well of, there's so much focus on being at the top of the leaderboard and being part of the top 7 at the beginning. And again, it goes to that shift of Jordan where it suddenly becomes nothing to do with that. And it really is just about working together with other people and making the choices that are right versus making the choices that are going to kind of like serve that journey to success and ambition. And so how did that shift really change the character for both of you as well?
Yeah, I believe that at that point you find out that Brink, your father figure, is not who they said they were, and you're realizing that everything that you've worked for is corrupted and everything that you believed is wrong. You kind of are backed into this corner where you have no choice but to trust these people you're working with and around you, and all of the things that you believed and all the things that Jordan believed that meant something mean absolutely nothing because of the people in the world that they were like idolizing. So yeah, that just having Jordan kind of got backed into a corner of like, they make that decision. Like, if we do this, there's no going back. And they know that. It's like, well, like London said, we want to be a true hero. Jordan wants to be a true hero. So you got to make those tough decisions. And I think that kind of forced Jordan to make that decision. And like, I got to trust these people.
And I also wanted to ask you both about just the experience and the process of essentially stunt training for the series as well, because it's not just the aspect of stunt training and kind of figuring out the choreography, but it's also that idea of what is Jordan's combat style going to look like, and what are the strengths that each of the genders brings forth, depending on which of us is in a scene. Because again, it goes back to that idea that the powers are slightly different depending on which one of you is stepping into the role in that moment. And so what was that collaboration and that process for both of you?
Stunt training was, I think, my favorite part of the filming process.
Mine too.
Derek was really into it, and I think also took to it very quickly. Both of us. I mean, it's funny because Derek, you played football, yeah? That was
I did, yes.
Derek came from athletic background, and I came from a dance background. So getting into stunt choreography, there was already this pre-existing difference in our bodies in the way that we handle physicality like stunt. So Derek already is that like anchor and the grounded like solid part. And it was so hard for me to not look like Tinkerbell running down the stairs. Like everything, it's my life has always, this has been the problem, is everything is up because of ballet. So that already existed, which was so lovely because, the difference of Derek doing the boxing drills that we would do and me doing the boxing drills that we would do looked completely different, even though it was the exact same thing. And it worked perfectly in the end result of the fight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, again, I remember, by the way, kudos to London, because I had like 11 days and she got thrown in at the last minute and just picked it up. Like she learned the full first fight choreography within like 7 days and was just maybe less than that, like 4 or 5 days, and then was just thrown into the fight and was, yeah, it was crazy to watch London adapt and pick that up. I remember the first day I could tell she was getting frustrated and then just slowly like chipping away. And then by the time it came to shoot it, she was just phenomenal. It was amazing to watch that transformation and her pick it up so fast. And I remember her saying that like, oh, I'm ballet, it's up here. I'm like on my toes and it seems so long and lean, but it lent itself so perfectly to Jordan in the female form. It's like this agile, almost ballerina like movement, this swiftness to it. And then the anchor, like she mentioned with the male version. So it was really cool to watch that and really cool to see the end result.
Which kudos obviously to the stunt team too, for
right.
Jason Gosby noticed that immediately and was like,
Yep.
okay,
this is, yeah. Yep. Yeah.
I love that. And also the fact that in the show, we kind of get to see the growth of Jordan's skills throughout the series as well. And just the way that they're being called upon in moments, and particularly leading up to that scene in episode 8, which is such a huge scene. It's really an all hands on deck, every character present. There's intimate character moments happening at the same time that you've got massive fight sequences going on. And so what was the experience of going into a scene with that, with just all the logistical elements of the choreography that was involved in that, alongside all the character work that you have to do for a moment like that as well?
The finale, I didn't even realize how much was going on in the finale until we saw it because the campus that we filmed on was not massive in the area that the big final battle took place in. So we could see everything going on. My mind didn't piece it together until the end. Everything was very, we had the opportunity, because of our director being fantastic and our stunt team being fantastic, to kind of have our own separate moments and be able to put these things into place like a puzzle. And it was not overwhelming, which was really nice.
Mm-mm. And we're kind of getting beat up that whole 8th episode. Oh yeah, so it was like, we get saved by Marie. So it was really,
there's a whole stunt scene that happened that never made it.
I never got, they
that was, I think, where our main focus was like, okay, we have this huge fight that we're so excited about. Never made it into the class.
And then it's just us getting lasered in the back.
Yeah. There's a whole fight scene before that.
I know.
It was great.
Yeah.
And for both of you, with all the projects that you've both done up to this point, this is the most involved role that you've both had up to this point, the most episodes that you've filmed in a singular character. And so what was the difference in terms of just the experience of being able to build such an in-depth and intimate relationship with your character from the amount of time that you're able to spend with it, as well as just the way that you're able to collaborate with the people around you differently just through the amount of time that you're spending on set with one another?
I think we both came into other shows before this as smaller parts on already established shows, which, in my opinion, is terrifying.
Yeah.
I love it because it's kind of getting to be like a fly on a wall of, especially when I worked on Shameless, that show had been going on for so long and they were so established. And thank God everyone on set was kind and welcoming and wonderful. But it's very intimidating to go onto a show that you're a guest on.
Mhm.
And I it was a weird feeling not being a guest. It was great. I felt very lucky and very humbled, and we got an amazing cast and amazing crew. So it allows you to have a little more comfort and relaxation, I think.
Agreed. Yeah, definitely. I mean, my first day I was so nervous because I was working with people that have been regulars on shows, and so it was like my first time. And I had like one line my first day. I was just really trying to nail that line down. But yeah, as you know that you're going to be in all the episodes and you're going to get more opportunities to play and grow as an artist, you just find this comfortability in the fact that everybody on set was just so amazing, and we had such an amazing cast, and we all felt so safe and so welcome, and we're able to just be open in and make mistakes was a blessing in and of itself. For this to be my first experience and our first experience was to have this on this big set, just gave me even more confidence as like an artist to, trust myself and have fun and build these relationships and watch it translate onto the screen.
I love that. And I'm so impressed at the way that the two of you have approached sharing this role. I think it's such a unique thing that you've accomplished. And from the very get-go, it feels completely seamless in watching both of your performances that you fully believe that it's the same character throughout. And that's such a testament to the work that you've both done together. So congratulations on a great season one, and can't wait to see the next season once it comes out.
I don't know.
There you go.
All right. We're in different
There
places.
it is.